Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D. Season 6, Episode 10. It is called Leap, so full spoilers for the episode as always. These S.h.i.e.L.D. reviews are brought to you by one of our patrons. They are sponsored by Tim Neal, one of our patrons, so thank you to him. So this episode's set entirely in the lighthouse, and s.h.i.e.L.D. has infiltrated. Obviously, we were speculating last week about May as to why or because I'm pretty sure we speculated that it wasn't really May, or something to that effect. I'm sure we ran through the options.
Yeah. We said it. We definitely didn't feel like May.
Yeah, but we start the episode and they lock her up and they find dead Sarge, and they're like, "Well, May did that. That's kind of extreme." But, Skye goes in to talk to her, quench her. This isn't like you. May's very stoic. I mean, more than usual, which was basically a joke that they kind of had in the episode, is that you're quieter than normal.
Yeah.
And the debate, there's a scene where Yo-Yo, Piper, and I think Skye again are just standing around, just kind of debating. This isn't like her. This is not her attitude. This is not. Fish in a barrel aren't her style. It's just not the way she operates.
How May said she wanted to kill him, but she hates guns.
Yeah. And of course, there's the eventual moment where May starts being like, "Wait, I did what? What are you talking about? What happened?
Yeah.
What happened?" And it's pretty clear how once we realise that s.h.i.e.L.D. can jump from person to person and kind of possess people, it's quite clear that Davis is the one that brought her on. Because obviously he had that moment with Jacko last episode where he kind of ran into her. We didn't see him run into her. They were both going towards her, and then all of a sudden she wasn't there, and we're with Jacko the whole time, so it made sense it was Davis.
It did,
yeah. So we have this episode where s.h.i.e.L.'s swapping from person to person. She goes to Piper at one point, who's looking for Shrike tech, or not tech, but Shrike.
And then Deke confronts her and is like, "Hey, you shouldn't be having that."
Yes.
So she jumps into Deke.
Which is actually really neat, because I mean, ultimately, I think this episode largely revolves around one big scene where all the main characters, barring a couple who are elsewhere, assemble in the main command deck at the lighthouse. And there's a really, really neat trick here, because the last person we saw jump into was Deke. So I think we naturally have this feeling that it's Deke. We know it's Deke. We've seen it's Deke.
Yeah.
And he even has some suspicious lines where. So they're debating. I think Fitz comes in and says, "Hey, it could be any of us." Like, it's one thing to assume that it's someone else in the base, but it could be anyone. And I think at this point they've let Mia out of her cell, and she's joined the group as well. And they're like, "Okay, we're keeping tabs on every agent in the building. Mac locks down the lighthouse so that no one else can get in or out. So she's trapped in there with them." But once they realize it could be any of them, it becomes this game of, okay, well, how do we prove? So, she doesn't get the memories. When she was in May, she didn't seem to know anything about May's past. She has to kind of bluff her way through it. So they start kind of, bringing out secrets that only like one other person might know, and kind of confirming it that way.
Then, so if the other person also knows it, that verifies both of them.
Yeah. So they don't give the whole secret. They give like half the secret. In Mac's case, he gave Skye sends half of her or not half, but sends some of her paycheck to someone every month. And she's
and it's like, okay, he knows about that, and then she has to confirm, "Yeah, I do," and say who it is, so that Mac knows that she's telling the truth.
Yeah, although I never like hearing about Lincoln. Just FYI.
That is the second worst thing about this scene.
The second worst thing about this scene.
There is one thing I dislike about this scene. Just one.
Just one, okay.
Well, a proper thing. That's like a nitpick, but I got one proper thing I dislike about this.
Because this is a pretty good scene. I mean,
it's a fantastic scene.
Because
it's just got one problem.
What's the one problem?
This should have been where the secret for Mac and Deke should have been with.
I thought of this too. Yeah, I thought like Mac was going to.
I was like, oh, this is where it's coming out.
Yeah, he's going to be like, "Hey, Deke, what was in your virtual framework? Like, who are you shacking up with digitally?"
Yeah.
And he's going to be like, Daisy.
Exactly. I was like, this scene is designed to get this out into the group.
No, it's too serious. We're going to have more of a fun scene when that comes out.
I mean, sure, but
This is a pretty heavy, tense
this
drama
show
scene.
manages to balance comedy even amongst intense moments.
Sure, it does. So yeah, so they're sort of clearing people. Mac does this thing where once they've cleared Yo-Yo and Sky, he asks them to come with him to his office, and then he locks them in the office. And it makes everyone else kind of jumpy about him, like, oh, did he just trick us somehow? And he's like, no. Those two have superpowers. If s.h.i.e.l.d. gets into either of them, we're all screwed because we can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but it works to make us doubt Mac at least a little bit because we know that s.h.i.e.l.d. was going for the director. That was who she was told she needs to get for clearance.
And likewise, the last person we saw her go into was Deke, and Deke says something like, "I talk all the time. I don't have any secrets," which, well, is somewhat true. It also does sound like a deflection. It sounds like
it does. And he said that, and that's when I was expecting it to come up, and then it just shifts over to I think it does shift to Fitz at that point.
I think they were doing all the important people first. Deke's the least important. If it's Deke, it's like, well, it's Deke. I mean, we can deal with Deke.
Yeah.
Deal with Deke. Davis stole a pen from an alien.
Yeah, yes, this is like people who used to like take the pens from like in the bank, and then they had to start chaining them down because people just took the pens.
I guess.
Yeah.
So no, they're all debating this, but then ultimately it becomes like, Max asking Fitz questions, and he's like, "Hey, where was Simmons undercover when we first met?" Which is actually really neat because that's when Mac was introduced out of the show. That was back in season 2, start of season 2, and it's very clear that he can't answer. So I was like, okay, nice little swerve there, because for the audience, we were all kind of expecting Deke, even though it's a neat red herring, because obviously she could have jumped again multiple times.
Oh, absolutely. She could have been in anyone.
Yeah. And she kind of like pops out of Fitz. And she is solid once she comes back out. I mean, as she has been, but she can just go in and out of bodies as she sees fit, and it's very quick. Like,
she kind of works her way up the room by jumping in and out of people.
Yeah, she does that later on, but I mean, it justifies how easy it just the scene last episode where she goes into Davis. It actually justifies just how easy and quick it was. Like, oh yeah, it is that quick. Like,
Yeah, there's not much you can do to stop it.
So she does a bit of a demonstration. She wants clearance so she can go fetch, we'll talk about what she's going to fetch in a little bit. But she, pops into various members. Who's it? Piper shoots Piper's own hand to kind of establish that not only can I hurt someone else, I can also hurt the body I'm in.
Yeah, some fantastic effect. Just there was a shot afterwards where you could just see the hole through.
Oh, the hand looked good. There's a point where she's in Deke and Mac's choking Deke, but then she switches to Mac and like continues choking Deke. And Deke's like very nearly like getting choked out. Like, he's gasping for air by the time he's let go. And she's like, that doesn't have to be painful, but like, I want what I want. And they keep trying to fight back, and eventually she does have this moment where she kind of darts up the room.
Yeah,
up the stairs.
Because Max said, "Hey, Davis is up on the balcony." It's like, "Hey, you got a shot. You just take it if you have to."
Yeah, and she works her way up the room, going from body to body until she's up in the balcony as well. And she goes out to Davis, and Davis dies. We get a death scene in this episode. Davis, she makes him jump, sort of off the balcony, and kind of head first because it's not like that high up, but it's sort
of... That's what I mean. I was a little surprised when he was actually dead because I was like, yeah, I mean, it was a nasty fall, but I wouldn't have expected it to be a death.
No, I thought it was going to be a death because he was going head first. Like, if he jumped down onto his feet, I'd expect a broken leg at worst.
Yeah.
But because he went head neck first, I think, okay, no, he's like this.
No, fair enough. I thought they might have done something where he was nearly dead. So it did surprise me a little bit when he was actually just dead.
It's kind of neat in the sense that, like, Davis has been around for a long time, and it's actually kind of like, it's like a red shirt death, but it's a red shirt that actually kind of means something because he's been around for so long.
Yeah, I think red shirt is a bit too harsh for him at this point.
It is, but
it's just outside our main circle of characters where it's not like, oh, this really hurts.
Yeah, it's bizarrely elevated Piper a little bit because Piper like had like this close friendship, like this love-hate relationship with him, and now it's like no, she's the first one who rushes to his body, and she is pissed. So it actually gives her a bit more character because now she has something to really fight for. Now she's got something to be passionate about, and that's kind of different. So she ends up taking Mac, and holds a gun to his head.
As he walks out, it's just like, hey, follow me, and I'll just pull the trigger.
Yeah, she can kill the herself essentially, whoever she's in, and obviously she won't get hurt, but she's killing the body.
Well, I think she does have to leave before the bullet would hit him because she jumps out of Davis as soon as he's falling.
That's true. The question is, though, does she need to do that, or was that more for?
Well, I suspect she does. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, my question is then, I mean, a bullet's pretty quick. Like how well does she have to time that to get out in time for the bullet?
I mean, there seems to always be like a second or two when they come around, when she jumps out, where they're still kind of dazed and not with it, and they're like, "Oh, what just happened?"
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine if she starts pulling the trigger, and then because she'd have to step forward, right, and that would make her out of the way rather than she'd have to go to the side. As soon as she, I imagine as soon as she steps out, the body would probably just carry on autopilot before he kind of realized.
All right. My only problem with this is that I don't necessarily buy the threat then of shooting herself in the head if she has to move out because it's so quick. I'm not convinced she can actually do it, make the jump in time.
Fair enough. I mean,
the way she killed Davis made complete sense. If this is the rule that she can't actually be in the body when she does it, then it makes sense the way she does it with Davis. It's like a nice natural thing where she sort of leans forward and then just pulls herself back as he falls. Right? Yeah. That makes sense to me. But getting out of the way of a bullet, and I'm like, you're saying like, oh, the body will do it on autopilot, but it's not that much of a distance for the finger to go to pull the trigger. Like it's not.
No, it's not. That's why I feel like if she just starts and then steps out, that's it. And it's only one step. It's not a huge amount that she has to move.
How much is starting? I don't know. It's not jiving in my head. This idea of like
it works for me.
Half pulling the trigger but moving. So, but anyway, so she goes to a room so we'll jump back a little bit to get some theorizing because we kind of have answers about Coulson now, or Sarge rather.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's actually one of the things we kind of speculated on actually a while ago, like early in the season. We're talking about certainly whenever they brought up the monoliths again, we might have got talking about this. That would make sense. That's where we maybe thought of this. But the idea of the monoliths being responsible in some way for what's going on, and I don't know if we ever guessed what actually was said in this episode, but I remember theorizing about the monoliths. So Fitz has a theory that one was space, one was time, and the third arguably might be creation. And obviously we had what he was calling last season the nightmare dimension, where everything was being created. But the idea that it's creation, and because Coulson went in there, the three monoliths that exploded combined and created a duplicate, but also moved them to a different place and a different time. Hence why he's been around so long. However, we find out later when Sarge wakes up, because even though he appeared dead, he heals like Wolverine and he gets
pretty slowly,
up.
But he does.
Yeah, he's got a pulse, and then it sort of builds, and then eventually he's up, and he breaks out his restraints, and he gets to the same room, and it's basically the leftover energy in the what do we call it, the orb thing that they trapped the energy in.
I can't remember the name of it.
When it was all happening last season.
Yeah.
But that's where s.h.i.e.l.d. went. That's where she wanted in. And Sarge goes there too. And it becomes very clear that it did not create... Like, this is not a duplicate Coulson. And even though his memories of his family are actually memories of May and like characters like that, they're not his memories. It very clearly shows us and tells us that he was an entity that is its own thing before he went into a body that looked like Coulson.
It feels like there's a bit of both going on here, because the memories, he clearly has access to at least some level of Coulson's memories, because, like I say, he can see, the May and whoever else was there in those.
Yeah.
So those are clearly still in the body, but there is a driving force that then possessed it over the top, similar to how s.h.i.e.l.D. is possessing these other bodies.
Oh, so you think it's just so as a duplicate of Coulson that this other entity is just possessed? That's what you're thinking.
And kind of overwritten. Yeah. I think they've kind of merged in a way. I think because he seems to have forgotten what he was to some extent. It's only this where she prods, it's like, hey, you're like me. You can, if you really think about it, you'll remember your name, and he comes out with it. I think the Coulson that is in there and this other being have kind of merged.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if I like that as strictly as you just said it, though. I like the idea that it's less Coulson and more this other thing. And that there's memories of Coulson in there because it was created from a duplicate of Coulson. But for me, I don't like the idea that there's literally a duplicate of Coulson that so be kind of cheated and got a Coulson back somehow. That he could eventually just become more of a Coulson. I think ultimately this has to be this other entity that has learned from what it's learned from Coulson.
So if the entity then decided to leave Coulson's body, what would you be left with?
That's a good question, but I don't know is the answer. But I'm not convinced there's just a Coulson left over.
No, I mean, that's fair. Maybe I'm wrong.
Because it gets sent to this other place where these non-corporeal entities exist, which is where both s.h.i.e.l.d. and Puricateur, whatever he said, like, because he said his name.
It ended in a Q, I'm sure.
It was a weird name, but for me, like, it would feel like cheating to me if we just have a duplicate Coulson. But what I like more than that is the idea that this entity took over this body that showed up, right? That this was created, right? Or if it even had the choice to like do that, like, was it just the monolith created it here and he was there, and it just like it merged with them there and then, and that was just it. But the idea that this is an entity that has learned humanity from Coulson, or like whatever of Coulson was in there, kind of thing. I think that's more interesting to me, just because it's still a new character, it's still a new entity of some kind.
No, I don't disagree, which is why the way I was saying it, I don't think this entity leaves. I think in the end it stays, and it is this new being, this combination of the two. It's Coulson and this thing. So I think that is a new character, a new entity to me.
Well, yeah, but that would imply that it could leave Coulson on its own, and if that's the case, then is it not cruel that it's not doing that?
Not necessarily, because Coulson lived, Coulson died. This was a copy. This is kind of like a clone almost.
Okay, but what claim does it have to this body, though, then?
I don't know, but like maybe just the idea that, like, these two let's assuming they are two separate minds, have been in this same body for some considerable time at this point. Maybe it isn't a case of they can be separated anymore. Maybe it is just, no, this is what it is now. The pair of them combined.
Yeah, that's fair, but I kind of like the idea that there wasn't a choice in the first place either. Like, this entity, for whatever it was before, like, fundamentally changed, but I still kind of see it as this entity first. I'm kind of thinking of it as if you've seen Total Recall, which, and I'm going off the deep end here, but if you've seen Total Recall, and I'm going to spoil the ending here. I need to spoil the twist of Total Recall.
I'm pretty sure most people know the end of Total Recall at this point.
So Arnold Schwarzenegger in that movie, over the course of the film, like, is fighting the villains, and he knows that there's some history. He's got amnesia, and there's some history with him and Mars. And the twist is that he finds out that he was actually a villain. He was working with the main bad guy, and he was awful. But, and the bad guy expects him just to revert back to who he was because he learns this. And he's like, no, I'm better than this. I believe that I am a better person, so I'm going to continue being a better person and still try and stop you. And I think we're getting kind of a similar thing here with Sarge, where he's learning that he is what s.h.i.e.l.d. is. And because even in this scene, she's like, oh, you're me. Like, you remember who you are, and like we can do this together. And he's like, no, I'm going to stop you. I don't care what I was. I'm going to stop you. The idea that whoever Sarge is being is who he is. It doesn't matter what he came from or what he technically was, hundreds or thousands of years ago. Interestingly, Fitz does point out that this is not the first non-corporeal entity of some sort of form that they have encountered. He brings up Ghost Rider.
Yeah, which is interesting, and I don't think we ever got any resolution on Coulson's deal with Ghost Rider.
No, and I mean, we actually theorized again that this, like, Sarge had something to do with Ghost Rider, and this would actually indicate that maybe that's why. Like, maybe that's why, if Ghost Rider had a claim on Coulson of some kind, is that why this duplicate Coulson gets sent to this place? Because this is technically where Ghost Rider's...
I know what the deal was, is, you have to give up this other cloned body that's going to happen. Like, you have to not claim it back, sort of thing.
I mean, that's kind of weird, because, I mean, like, would it know that's going to happen? I mean...
Time travel. This body, because this body was sent to the past, right? So Ghost Rider may have already known that this body exists.
Okay, sure. I don't know. I think it's more interesting to me if it's more of a byproduct of whatever the deal was. Because of whatever deal had been made with Ghost Rider, like, Coulson was in some way, like, tethered to this place, and that's why when the monolith sent it somewhere, it sent it there, because it's seen that place is where it belongs.
Could be, yeah.
Because either Ghost Rider comes from this place, or it's tangentially related to Ghost Rider, this plane of existence, whatever it is. So yeah, I mean, s.h.i.e.l.d. wants to, bring forth other entities and possess everyone with Shrike. Eventually, Yo-Yo and Skye break out the room. They come and help Mac, but s.h.i.e.l.d. comes out and ends up inside Yo-Yo.
Yeah, she tries to go into, I think it was Skye that she tries to go into, and Yo-Yo runs in front, and it's like, oh shit.
Yeah. So she's in Yo-Yo, and she's like, oh, this is why I didn't want to let me get into this body. And Mac's like, okay, you want a plane, I'll give you a plane, but I'm going with you. So he has some level of influence with her, and as May says at the end, he's trusting the rest of the team to
running everything else in his place.
Yeah, to do everything else that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So
also makes sense, because when Yo-Yo, like, let's assume s.h.i.e.l.d. stuck to a word and took the plane and then left Yo-Yo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yo-Yo's gonna have no idea what the hell has just happened, because they lose their memory. She'll have known s.h.i.e.l.d. was in her, sure, but not any details where she is. At least with Matt going along, it's like, okay, there's someone there who can catch her up to speed.
But it also makes sense just from the idea that Matt cares about Yo-Yo. So this is not purely a director decision. This is equally tied up in emotional attachment. So that's how we end the episode, with them flying off, with a big green screen shot of May and Skye watching. So no, it was a really enjoyable episode. It was a really fun mechanic, and it became a very serious mechanic. Once she started getting very threatening, it was like, oh shit, this is actually really powerful. They can't do anything about this.
Yeah, definitely, and still some funny moments in the episode though, because that's what S.h.i.e.L.D.'s good at. Few that I liked particular were, when May was going through, okay, the last things you remember, walking through the day. So to Yo-Yo, so, well, you and Mac were off to have sex. And he was like, what? And it's like, yeah, come on. We all know.
Yeah.
And then the other one that got me good was once Fitz had decided about the monolith, the third monolith being creation, and what this other dimension actually was. And Deke was like, well, last year you said it was a fear dimension. And he's like, well, I'm the smart one. Still trying to one up his past self is
yes. Well, he's got to one up his honeymoon at some point, so
yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure he'll try his best. That was a really fun mechanic. It got very serious once the threat became apparent, like how dangerous it was, and it wasn't just all talk either. It was like, no, we killed a character. We killed a fairly recurring character to prove how dangerous this is. So there we go. So we have s.h.i.e.l.d. We have 3 episodes left, and she's turned into quite the nemesis. I think like she was fine before this episode. I think this episode actually really sold herself as like a really, really big deal.
Yeah, it did, definitely.
So
did a good job.
So that's good. But yeah, that is episode 10 of Agents of S.h.i.e.L.D.
We should mention it was Comic-Con this weekend, and they
Yes.
did confirm that season 7 will be the final season.
They did. I expected that, but
Yeah,
it makes
but it's nice
sense.
to just have the confirmation. It's still a decent amount. They talked about how they did expect season 5 to be the last one. That's why the last episode was even called The End.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did all they did with Coulson, and then they were given this, and it's like, right, okay, wrap up loose ends.
Yeah. So no, that means we can look forward to season 7. We don't have to worry about anything, and they know their endings, so the finale will be.
It sounds like they've known for a while. Yeah.
The finale will be something that actually does feel like a proper ending. So, all good news, really. So
yeah.
And if you told me back in like season 3 this was going to get to season 7, I probably wouldn't have believed you.
Yeah,
so.
and that's it. Season. Can't we have one more? That's always the feeling, right? But 7's pretty good.
No, seven's perfectly fine. The hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, for example, had a 7-season run. So 7 is a fine number to get to.
The only problem with it being 7 is that the last 2 were half seasons.
First season of Buffy was a half season, so you know.
Yeah, well, it's still got half a season on this, then, hasn't it?
Well, sure, it has one half a season more. But also, I mean, also had a spin-off that went 5 seasons. So I mean, it's a whole other kettle of fish.
That might be asking for a bit much.
Well, if they actually started that Bobby and Hunter show, maybe we would
have done, yeah.
Oh man. Anyway, that has been episode 10 of season 6. We'll see you next time for episode 11. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can support the show and everything we do in the channel by going to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv, where you can support us for as little as $1 per month, and you get some bonuses, exclusive, some early stuff. Of course, at one of the higher tiers, you do get sponsor shows like Tim Neal does on these S.h.i.e.L.D. reviews, so you can go do that. Get us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you have any questions that you want us to consider answering on the show on upcoming episodes, you can send emails to mftvquestions@gmail.com. Still learning it. I just made that email.
That'll get smoother as he goes.
It will. So that's mftvquestions@gmail.com. So you can send it. Just the only thing I ask of you is to put the show that you're asking a question about in the subject box, because obviously we have lots of different shows that we're doing, so I need to be able to sort them and pick from the correct ones. Otherwise it'll go into a bottomless pit of a folder and probably never be found again. So that is the show. That has been our S.h.i.e.L.D. review. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?